I'm a big proponent of building on your wins, because if you get that win, no matter if you're low on the totem pole or wherever you are, if you miss the opportunity to build on a win, you may not get another one. If you don't show up, if you're not participating, if you don't follow up, you're not taking advantage of your win. You're not protecting what you already did. You're bearing your own accomplishment. People are scared to make decisions because you have to then stand by them. I think truly the great winners, really truly successful people, never feel like they've got it all sorted out. Everyone is not going to love everything you do. If you need them to, you will pay a heavy price. You have to make sure that the people that you're giving to are giving back to you as well. And you have a right to extract that, demand it, expect it, want it.
When we look at the back end of all the systems, the vast majority of those that listen to this podcast aren't yet subscribed. It would mean the world to me if you could subscribe today. That allows us to reach more people, the podcast grows, in turn allowing us to bring even bigger guests to you. I appreciate you for being here. Thank you so much. Well, welcome back to the show, everybody. If you've been following me for any length of time, you know that I am very passionate about sharing the truth about success. And today I'm honored to have one of the best women I could find to have a conversation about what it really looks like. For more than 30 groundbreaking years as a sports agent and best-selling author, Shari Wenk has represented sports celebrities and journalists in management, marketing, publishing, speaking appearances, brand and content development, media relations, and social media. One of the first women to dominate the sports marketing industry, she has negotiated deals for her clients in excess of $500 million, and speaks worldwide on the art of negotiation and the power of a winning mentality. Since launching the SLW agency in 1988, Shari has worked with Hall of Famers and legends such as Tim Grover, Tiger Woods, Earl Woods, Terry Bradshaw, Walter Payton, and countless more sports stars and award-winning journalists. She is the co-author of the New York Times bestselling Winning, The Unforgiving Race to Greatness, and Relentless, From Good to Great to Unstoppable by Tim Grover, 3 bestsellers by Tiger Woods and Earl Woods, and has also ghostwritten a dozen other celebrity bestsellers. Shari Wenk, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's so good to see you, and it's so great to be here. And I'm honored that you would read all that, and it exhausts me to listen to it all, but it's true.
Oh my gosh. Well, and for just to really, in the spirit of truth, there was so many more celebrities that she's worked with. I'm not a sports person.
Okay.
I couldn't pronounce all their names, but we will put them in.
Not necessary. Not necessary. It goes on for, I think it said 30 years, and actually I think it's been closer to 40 years now. So to date myself, I've been doing this for a really long time, started really young, and I've been really blessed to have a really wild and incredible ride.
Yeah, well, you say blessed, but I know what goes into that, right? There's so much like the way that you work, the preparation, the tenacity, and blessed is a very humble way to say it.
It's the result of a lot of work, I'll say that, and a lot of support, a lot of people believing in me.
Yeah.
At the right time.
Needed
to be.
Shari, you stand in your truth and power in such an unwavering way. And I know you've had 40 years experience of both life and as an adult, and also doing this incredible work with a lot of big names, big egos, very powerful people. And I understand why you have to grab that posture really quickly, being somebody who stood in the OR and called on cardiac surgeons. I get that. But you are so steadfast in who you are. Were you always this way?
I don't know, but I did it as was required. I learned really quickly. My business is based in sports.
Yeah.
And I grew up knowing nothing about sports, and I stumbled into something I learned really quick in my business. I went into book publishing, and the publisher, I'll make this really part of it really short, but they were like, we need someone who can do more sports. And I didn't know anything about sports. I mean, zero. And I was like, oh, me, like, just jumping in there like, oh, this would be good. I'll just volunteer for something. And then realize, okay, what the heck have I just gotten into? and realizing that, you always have to prove it. You always have to prove what you do. There isn't always going to be somebody to guide you or lead you or tell you what to do. Whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you work for a big corporation, whether you have bosses, whether you have friends or enemies or allies or opponents, like if you don't buy into it for yourself, you will be lost.
Yeah.
And that struck me very quickly that I was going to have to do a lot of song and dance and but prove it,
Yeah.
especially especially a woman in sports, which is not really what this is about, because I don't like that as a topic. I think you do what you do. I don't harp on that. But especially as a woman in sports, and I was 23, so I was like a child in sports, and people would be like, what in the world is this? So you
Yeah.
have to prove it. We
Yeah.
all have to prove it
Yeah. Well,
every day.
but so many people don't. And so was that instilled as a child for you? Like
No,
what was your upbringing like? Where'd you grow up? Was it like was hard work instilled? Did you have a
you
lot
know
of
what? I grew up in Chicago. I have no like hardships as a child. There was no like broken family or a dramatic story. My parents were hardworking people. They raised three kids in the suburbs. Um, I went to high school and I went to college and, was a communications major, a journalism major. And
anybody that
sort
you
of,
admired when you were growing up?
sorry.
Is there anybody that you looked up to when you were growing up that you're like, "Wow, I like that," or "I wanna be like
I
her," like
love to
him?
read the newspaper. I love to read columnists. I love to absorb good writing. I thought I was going to be a writer, which is why I went into book publishing. And then I realized, okay, no money really in writing. Like, I didn't have a lot of, I wouldn't say that my family was like, oh, go be a writer. It wasn't like that. It was like, what are you going to do to make money?
Yeah.
So I went into book publishing. I got an internship. I do all the things that we tell kids now. And I landed with a publishing house that was looking for young editors. They paid you like my first salary. I'm going back some years. My first salary was like $15,000 a year. And I thought I was a billionaire because the lower person was making $12,000 a year. I'm like,
Yeah.
I've got it made. And I stumbled into the sports thing, and I was very fortunate that the first couple books I acquired, which is what you do in the book publishing business, acquiring rights to books and producing them, did insanely well. Not necessarily because I was so smart, but because some things happened that made those books do really well. And it allowed me to sort of build on each win.
Yep.
I'm a big proponent of building on your wins, because if you get that win, no matter if you're low on the totem pole or wherever you are, if you miss the opportunity to build on a win, you may not get another one.
Yeah.
So how do you use it? How do you grow on it? How do you believe in yourself to keep going? And as I said, I had some great people who believed in me and thought it was hilarious that this like little 23-year-old was going to go do sports books, and they supported me. They like introduced me. I networked like crazy. I was like a lunatic for networking. And at that same time, I was like, trying to have a life and trying to like be a normal 23-year-old, 24-year-old, 25-year-old, and, growing that part of my life. And in that space, the one person who totally, I needed to lean on was my boyfriend at the time. Because he knew sports and he thought it was hilarious that I was trying to do sports. He's like, you don't know anything. I'm like, well, I'm going to ask you a lot of questions. And in that time, we got married. We went on and had three kids. We've been married now for almost 38 years. And I had those little kids were running around, their kids, like they're all married now. And I've got three grandchildren, which is unbelievable. And, it's all just building on stuff. And then to me, it sort of just feels like a roller coaster that just never stopped. And
Yeah.
I get very sad when I see women talking about, especially young women, talking about, well, how do you have it all? How do you have both kids and the career? And I'm like, wow, we're still talking about that. That is amazing to me that we're still talking about that. That's still a challenge and an issue.
It's huge.
It
Yeah.
is huge.
It's huge and it's heavy. So quickly, the whole sports thing like that, I was cracking up when I learned that about you. Like I was thinking to myself, of course you just feel the narrative until you know what it is. And I was like, oh, I'm sure like maybe her dad was an athlete or, he drug her to all these games. Then she just, fell in love with it.
No.
But when
No,
you're like,
my
yeah, your husband was like, yeah, or your boyfriend now husband's like, yeah, you're gonna do this. But talk
right,
about
and
like just ignorance is bliss, but just like
ignorance.
drive to just figure it out. Like just
Yes,
figure it out.
I was
And
I
yeah.
was I was too stupid to not realize that what I was about to do was impossible. So, the thing about my upbringing was, like, if you walked into my parents' house on Super Bowl Sunday, they would be watching The Sound of Music. Like, they didn't they didn't care. That was not part of their they didn't care.
Yeah.
They were good with a good, a good opera on public television, and they just didn't care. They weren't weird about it. It just wasn't interesting
Yeah.
to them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Didn't care. And so I didn't have that. And so it took me a while, but I realized sports marketing had a boom around then. So my interest in doing this sort of dovetailed with the idea of sports marketing becoming a real business that had not existed before. So this was around the time that Michael Jordan was getting, deals, mega, mega $1 million deals. Then this team, that team, all the athletes had deals. And the idea of athletes being able to market themselves on a national basis outside of local, like, car dealerships and the sandwich shop down the street, it started to become this mega source of income for athletes who, I'm talking about, like, where guys would be like, "Well, can you get me 50 grand to do a book?" I mean, now there would be like 7 zeros after that 5 and 50. No one would it changed a lot really fast, and I was there for it.
Yeah.
But I
How
was
cool
stupid.
though.
Like, I'm a big advocate of, like, don't be afraid of being stupid to do this thing you don't understand, because you can I wasn't even failing forward. I was succeeding at it by just going, "I don't know,
Let's
let's do
try.
that, see what happens."
Yeah. Yeah.
It's no different, people are scared. People get scared to do the thing.
Why
You
do you
sit on
think that
social
is?
media.
Why do you think that is? Why do you think that more people aren't like that? To just go, I don't know. Like what let's just see. Let me just try it out. Like that doesn't sound like a bad reframe to me.
I think social media, not it as much as it helps and shows people and gives people examples and blueprints of how to succeed, I think it also scares them into failing, because it looks like everybody else does it so well and so beautifully and so, with such ease. And we know it's not true, right? It's not true, but it's still hard to look at that and think, well, I don't look, someone's going to say, well, she's so, or he's so, or they're so successful, and I don't have those tools, or I don't have those clients, and I don't have that following. And that didn't exist when I was doing this. We were a little bit working in a vacuum. Still, your competition, but now your competition is in your face every single day. And they're aggressive about showing you what they know that you don't know,
Yeah.
whether it's true or not. So
Yeah.
people get intimidated by that. That's a theory. It's not the only reason,
Yeah.
but it's a
What would
theory.
you say to that person who's looking at that stuff and is stuttering in their steps because of it? Not look at it? Do they block do they just, take it off their feed? Do they not do social media? Do they limit like what would you say? Because that is the reality. That's the reality of your
It
children,
is.
grandchildren. Yeah.
Right. It is. I mean, you got to know who you are. You have to have the
Mm.
confidence to know who you are,
Yeah.
and what you bring.
Yeah.
There has to be some la 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 to this, because if you're that caught up in what other people are doing, you really don't have a chance. I think you're just gonna, you're gonna dwindle. You have to know who you are. What do you bring? What can you do for these people? What do you believe in yourself? And that may sound very trite, but there has to be some resilience in you. I
Yeah.
think in the end of the day, it's resilience. That's the final thing of all the things you can have going for
Ah,
you. The ability, you can have intelligence at what you do, you can be talented, you can have all these good things. But if you don't have resilience to the rejection, like, I'm literally in the business of rejection. All right. If you're an agent, you're about rejection. You're not going to get 50% of the deals you put out there. You may not get 10% of the
how many do
deals
you
you.
get? Like how many like on a busy season, how many messages or whatever proposals you send out and how many
Oh my God. it's even the other way. So if I have a client, which I do, who's an elite speaker, okay, I'll use this as an example, and I might get, let's say I get 40 inquiries a week
Mm,
asking this individual to speak. We might get 3, we might get 5, we might get 10, we won't get 40. And the reason is across the board, and you can't take that personally. And those reasons might range from, we were looking to spend this money. Oh, our days don't align. Or we were looking for this. I'm like, you asked me. You
yeah,
came to me and you asked me. So I'm telling you, this is what it takes. And I negotiate, but honestly, I don't waver in what I know is correct. Like, I'm not looking to like make deals that aren't good for my client.
yep,
So I think you have to always believe that, all right, we didn't get this one.
yeah.
Next.
And we move
And
on.
understand the reason you didn't get it. If it's the other way and you're putting things out there, okay, you're soliciting 100 people, whether, you're hitting them on, I don't like the whole DM thing. I think that's my personal opinion. Sending DMs to people who didn't ask to hear from you is not my kind of doing business, but I know there are those who really advocate for it. Um, but if you're putting things out there and you're getting a high level of rejection, that's A, normal, and B, you need to understand what is the source of the rejection. Why are you not getting back what you want? Understand you're not going to get all of it, but why are you not getting what you wanted? And you have to learn from it. Is your price wrong? Is your attitude wrong? Is your professionalism wrong?
Yeah.
Like, you need to look at those things and
It's data.
tinker.
It's data. Yeah.
Right.
It's
What
your
what
own
are you
data.
what are you doing right and what are you doing wrong?
Yeah.
Learn from it.
Yeah.
Maybe what you're sending out there isn't quality. Maybe your approach isn't professional. There could be a million things, but when you do have some success, then you have to be like, "Okay, why did this one work?"
And not be afraid to go, okay, why did this work? Why did the other ones not work? Until you can
Right.
see. I think patterns are so important, pattern recognition in people and behaviors, and this means that, and no different
Yeah.
there to be able, like you're running your own experiment here until you figure it out. But you said something that was all so helpful. Thank you for sharing. You said prior to getting into that resiliency is so important. And I got to say that if there's one person's Instagram that I would direct all of my women coaching clients to go to, it's yours. Because as soon as I don't do a lot of scrolling. Sometimes I go to your page, and as soon as I see like you take a breath before you go, and I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
it's gonna land. Like something inspired her today. And whatever comes out of your mouth is so, it's, to me, it's what the world needs to hear, because I'm
Thank you.
so effing over this ball spade bullshit. And I got you, girl. And one thing that you said, well, there's a lot of things that you said that I'll probably quote here, but you said like quit trying to build a brand and go prove yourself. Like go do something, go have success, go. And I feel like that's what you're saying now is like if you did that, then you would know who the hell you are. And it doesn't mean that those things don't sting. They still may until you get some reps. But if you know who the hell you are and you're unwavering in that, then why are we looking left and right? Like why do we
I
care? Why the hell do we care?
I think that's a great question. The
Yeah.
whole I
I
understand
almost
the
feel like it's backwards. Like they're
yes.
trying to show something before they have proof. And it's like, well, doesn't that feel misaligned everywhere? And isn't that why you just keep like looking and comparing? Like,
Like, what is your what I don't get it. I mean, I'll just be transparent and
yeah,
say, if you have some success and you win at something, and like, your brand will build itself. Like, we
yeah,
deal this with athletes all the time. I know what you're getting at, and I'll come back to that.
yeah,
But
yeah,
like, we see it with athletes. They're like, I got to build my brand. And, no better than Tim Grover, who's my, now my business partner and client. And he'll say, listen, Michael Jordan or any elite athlete that they have their brand because they won at the highest level.
yeah. That's
It
why I
takes
really
care
love
of itself.
listening to athletes because they have the receipts and there's,
It right. It builds itself. So if you are the most successful or you're very successful or you're elite at something you do, that is your brand. You can support it through everything else. But to go the other way, and I don't want to come off as being disrespectful of people who are trying to do other things, right? Like,
Yeah, yeah.
if
I
we're
don't feel like that's what you're trying to say here.
I'm not, because I have dear friends in this business who advocate for the importance of putting yourself out there and
Yeah,
being seen and creating that brand where people will come to you. And then, you share somebody's post with your girlfriends or whoever your partner, and you say, this is so smart. This is so great what she does here or what he does here. And that's important also. But you have to have something to support it. There has to be something you do that makes you interesting or remarkable and not just like have good hair.
yeah.
So again, I'm not trying to sound like I don't want to put anybody down by saying that.
No,
But I
I
think
don't think you're right.
that's,
It's
you
even
know,
just being, like, sure of who you are. Like, I'm a person of integrity,
that's it.
period, end of story, right? That's part of my brand,
Absolutely.
right? Like, so that's no
Absolutely.
matter what I do, that's what you're gonna get.
That's
Like,
right.
maybe start there.
Right, and you don't have to go from, 0 to a million in terms of your followers or your wealth or your success rate or anything. You have to just keep chipping away at it, stack your wins. Like, you can't stack them all at once. You have to just get the win you wanna win.
Yeah. You said something early on about, like leveraging that win, right? Like when you would win. So what would you do? What did you mean by that? When you get that win, what comes
So,
next?
for me, when I started out and I was working mostly in books, having a signing a big name author or signing a client or getting a book deal that, was that would be the next thing I would bang on for the person I wanted next. Who do they know that I want to know? Where can I be that the right people would be? Like, those people were my entryway to the next people.
Got it.
And not in an obnoxious way, but, if you're working along with somebody, like, how did you bring me here today? We were at an event together, right? And you met da da da, and we connected there. And it doesn't always work that way, but if you're not at those things, if you don't show up, if you're not participating, if you don't follow up, you're not taking advantage of your win. You're just not. You're not protecting what you already did. You're bearing your own accomplishment.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's like, gosh, I mean, there was a lot of money invested to go to that event too. So it's like, okay, who do I resonate with here? What's gonna happen? What connections am I gonna make? How does this thing continue past this event? How does this win? Because you
Absolutely.
put all that work into that one win. Now
Right.
you got the formula on the success and the success. You got the receipt. So, all right,
That's it. I mean,
where do we
you
go?
personal capital, I think, is everything. I do think it's so much who you actually know, not who you broadcast to on your social or whatever. I mean, that's important. It might be important to build, getting your message out, very important. Good content is important because we live in that world now. It'd be foolish not to have it. I don't post a lot because I don't think I don't I don't care to, to be honest.
We need you
Um,
though, Sherry.
I try to be better
We
about
need
it and
your
post a little
wisdom.
bit more, but
Yeah.
I really do, like, sometimes I'll keep a list of things I'm gonna talk about, and then I'm like, I don't wanna talk about that today," and
Yeah.
I usually do post when I'm triggered by something. You're absolutely right, like a deal that went weird
Yeah, I
or,
can tell. Yep.
negotiation, and I have to wait a little because 'cause I'm like, "Oh, I can't let them know that
Yeah, right.
I'm just literally just posting about something that happened an hour ago," although I'm tempted to,
You could
but
record and save maybe.
I do. I
Yeah.
do. I do. Um, and everything is a lesson, right? Everything
Yeah.
you deal with is a lesson. You have to keep working forward. And then you have to get to the point with that you start to separate. I'm big on this. Separate from the people that you were kind of dragging along with, the ones you're following. Like, you can get to that point where everybody's doing this, so you're doing it.
Yeah, I
And then
get it.
you have to separate.
Yeah, I
You
feel like
gotta
I
find
just.
one more thing that pulls you to a higher level or a different level, because what everybody's doing, they're already doing it. So, now what can you do to tweak it? What's the difference maker?
And is that something that you feel? Do you kinda know when you need to do that, or is that something that you really need to make sure that you have your eye on?
I always feel it. Like, if
Yeah.
we're doing something business wise that like I feel like a lot of people are doing similar, different. We will definitely like, so I'll go back to Tim Grover because he's big on this.
He's
He's like,
amazing.
if everybody's
You guys are like the best dynamic duo. I love it.
thank you. Um, he'll say, then that's our cue to go this way. If everybody's going this way, we're going that way. And I think that in any business, that is what sets anybody apart, sets any group apart. Because how else are you going to stand out? How are you going to distinguish yourself? And you don't have to do that. You might be really, really comfortable in the space you're in and let everybody else do what they want. But I'm just talking about that feeling of having to do what others are doing
Yeah.
because it's right or wrong. It's not right or wrong. It's just, you need to build your own thing, especially if you're independent, if you're working for yourself, if this is an entrepreneurial situation, even if you're working in a corporate situation, what's the thing that's going to keep you a little bit apart and make you so invaluable because you have something a little different that makes you stand out. But it still comes back to resilience and pushing through something when others are just like, whining and crying and miserable, and
Yeah.
what's going to set you apart a little. It's not
Yeah.
easy.
And it doesn't happen overnight.
It does not happen
It
overnight.
really, the stacking wins thing is so, and, I am not a patient person, and I'm not going to sit around and wait. I'm going to be moving, moving, moving the whole time, but the results don't come as fast as you want them to. But can you talk a little bit about the power of making decisions and the speed of making decisions?
Yeah, you have to be able to, because if you don't make decisions, you're just waiting for you don't make a decision, someone else is going to make one for you.
Yeah.
And you're going to sit on it for a long time. And then people are going to be like, well, okay, well, then we're just going to go this way. We're going to do this. And you could be like, okay, I guess that's what we're going to do. People are scared to make decisions
Yeah.
because you have to then stand by them. But I would rather stand by an uncomfortable decision than have, somebody else make decisions that get you sucked into something you didn't want. There's a
Yeah.
shortage of people who make decisions.
Yeah.
And if you
Yeah.
can be one of those people, you become invaluable because everybody will follow you. People will follow a decision maker 100% because they don't want to make the decisions.
So true.
It
So
makes it easy for everyone else.
it sure does. It sure, but then they'll bitch about it because right,
That's
it's her
okay.
fault, it's his fault.
True.
But they don't
You have
want
to
to
be
make the
willing to accept
decision.
that.
Yeah, yeah. So how many people do you feel today uh, are actually living in alignment with who they are, like their definition of success versus what their husband wants, the mom wants, society says they should be doing, like you said before, a mom who's working, traveling, and, has a husband and career and all the things. Like, how many people are actually going, this is what I want, and I'm going for it. And I don't care what you say.
So I think everybody does care about something or someone, what they say, whether they bury it or not. Um, I think the there's no right path with this.
Yeah.
So I think truly the great winners, really truly successful people, never feel like they've got it all sorted out, right? So the most successful people that I've ever known, at a really super, super high level, they're never satisfied. They're always tinkering with, I could do more. I could do this. I could do this. Like there's never a sense of like, all good,
Yeah.
right? Because you always feel like you might be letting someone down. So if you're, and
Mm.
I wouldn't dress as just to women. This would be probably true for any group of successful men who have families, wives, spouses, everybody else as well. If we're talking about women having to make those choices of balancing it all out, there is there's just never an answer. I don't know how to even I can never tell you that in all my years I ever was at a point where I was like good with, you know, the balance.
Yeah.
If I'm going to be all in with the work I'm doing over here, then there's going to be people over here that are not totally happy about that. And if I'm doing less of the work and this group is happier, then I'm not going to be happy, right? And I don't really believe in the concept. Balance to me is a weird thing because there's no
Same.
such thing. There's no, it's
Agreed.
just pieces. Here's the
Yeah.
mistake I think that a lot of people make, especially women. We keep adding stuff. Like you only have this much time, but you're like, well, but I should run out and I'm supposed to go to that party. I'm supposed to be at that lunch and I should call this friend. She wants to get together and I'm supposed to go see my aunt and I've got to take my kids and I have to go. Like, so we add stuff
Mm.
instead of closing the door on things that probably we don't need to do,
Yeah.
but we're doing them for other people who may not do it for us in return
Mhm.
so that we can feel good about doing everything. I got over that some years ago where I'm like, I'm stopping here. My kids were older. This is not about having young children. That's where your children need you. I'm talking about when my kids were older and I was still sort of in that like swirliness of, oh, there's so much to do and there's so much something's going to give. And I wasn't willing to give up all the success that I had built up at that point.
Yeah.
So, for example, when Tim and I were writing Relentless, I literally moved out of my house.
Mm.
I moved to the city. I had a house in the suburbs, kids, some were in and out of there. And I said, my girlfriend had an apartment in the city and she was not using it for a month. I said, okay, I'm going to go live there and I'll come see you. I'll be at your football game and I'll be at this for this. But the rest of the week, I'm just not going to be here because this is something I need to do. And I can't write that book while I'm in the house
Yeah.
doing those things. And we did the same thing with winning. We wrote winning during the pandemic when everyone was home. Everyone was home in some house. And we ended up going down to Florida where Tim was training a client and wrote it there so that I could just,
Yeah.
there's certain things we need to do. So back to the earlier point was, I just think you're constantly, I don't know anybody that can tune out everyone else's opinions. I've had more women come up to me and say, I want to do this and this, but my family is really, my parents are upset with me. I'm not being a good mother. They think I'm not a good wife. They think I'm like, well, I don't know. Do you think you're a good mother? Do you think, at some point you kind of have to pull the pieces together? And, I had my kids are really close in age. So right now they're all right around 30 to give you a perspective of my family and, 3 kids. So they were at when the youngest was born, they were like 3, 2 and newborn basically.
Wow.
And it was just wild all the
I
time.
I can
And I
only
worked
imagine.
less
Yeah.
and relied on my husband more and I focused on that, and I just kept telling myself, "If I can just stay with it, if I can just stay in it, just
Mm.
enough."
Yeah.
Like, there
Stay in
were
the work
years
enough, you mean? Stay in the work enough, yeah.
stay in the work enough
Yep.
that I could still be like a person in this business, and
Yep.
then, like, like a dial that you could turn up and down without turning it off. I never wanted to turn it off and then have to turn it back on because the energy to turn it all back on is
Oof.
way too much.
Yep.
And I
I
don't
get
even
it.
mean just the physical energy, but just like the hugeness of saying I'm going back in business. And so I sort of pretended I was in the business the whole time. I was,
Yeah.
but there was
It
like
sounds fun.
maybe a year I made like $10,000 a year. And then there were some years I'm like, well, that's surprising. I actually did okay and still had my kids. And those years go really fast, and if you can stain it a little and if my kids were to talk about it, they'd be like, "Oh, mom was always like," sometimes I had to go sit out in my car in the garage to take a phone call because they're all like,
Crazy, loud,
crazy,
fun, yeah.
crazy, or like you have to open a bag of Twizzlers on the floor so they're, like, entertained for 5 minutes so you can go do something else.
Yeah. So during that time, did you ever question if you were a good mom, if you were a good spouse? Did your parents ever put any pressures on you? Like, what these ladies are coming up to you and asking you for help
Yeah.
with? Did those thoughts ever go through your head?
I relate to all of it.
You
I
do.
relate to all of it. I didn't say, "Am I a good mom or a good," I mean, I knew I was pushing the boundaries of, what would make other people happy or unhappy. Most of my friends did not work. They still don't. And that's a great life that they're fine, that's their
What they
choice. I
want.
didn't I
Yeah.
didn't care. I just knew that I had a career that was very unique, that I'd worked incredibly hard to build, and it couldn't be replaced. I couldn't just be like, "Oh, I'm gonna give this up for a while, but then I'm gonna go work for those people and do it." Like, once I was out of it, I was out of it, and I could not replace it. And I worked too hard to get there. And
Hmm.
so I just tinkered with it, and I was very fortunate, definitely blessed that at the right time that I was kind of deciding between this and this, certain, this client or that client came along. My collision sort of with Tim Grover happened around that time where I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. He was looking for an agent full time. I wanted to work with one person. That was a good collision. He wanted to write a book. I wanted to write that book. And so a lot of things happened that allowed us to build that, and now, as I say, a partnership. But, he does what he does, I do what I do. We don't tell each other how to do each other's job.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
it's pretty great when you have a partner who really understands the idea of partnership.
Yeah, it can be tricky. Do you feel like maybe, like listening to you, I feel like maybe you were on the front end of redefining what motherhood could be for women. Realizing 30 years ago,
I think the best thing I can say
you
about
gave them an
that,
example. Like you
it
gave women an
it's
example, maybe.
I think the answer to that is shutting out the noise
Yeah.
and raising your own family.
Yeah. Your way.
Do for your own family.
Your
Stop
way.
looking at everyone else and listening to everyone else, including the experts that tell you how it have to be, because you could sit and scroll all day and listen to all the experts and tell you how it should be. No one has your kids. No one has your relationship. No one knows your income. No one knows what. Raise your family, live your life, be in that bubble that you can create for yourself and your family,
Yeah.
and everyone else can really go do their own thing. I know what's not popular and what's not right, and I still do a lot of things that people are like, "Oh, what does your family say about that?" I'm like, "But I'll just deal with that."
Yeah.
You get tired of explaining yourself at some point.
Yeah.
You wanna do best for everybody, but you have to continue to do best for yourself. You really do. Otherwise, as you said, you end up being home at some point going, "Well, that isn't really what I wanted." And your kids grow up and they go off to do other things, and now you're there and you're like, "Okay, now what do I got?
Who am I? What's
Who am
happening?
I?" And maybe that's fine and maybe it's not,
Yeah, but it's your choice. It's
but it's your
everybody's choice.
choice. It's your choice.
I
You have to
find
be
that.
willing to make those choices.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I find that, and people will say that they don't know, and I'm like, "You know that you know. So what is it?" Right? Like, if we could just drown out everybody, you know. And intuition is, we all have the ability to tap into it, and we've tested ourselves out. We come I always say, "Wherever you go, you take you with you." So, okay,
Oh
well,
my god.
like,
I
where
said that today, "Wherever you go, there you are."
yeah. Yeah, and it's like,
It's
okay, well,
true.
if I always say, like, okay, you can change your external environment, but wherever you go, like, you're gonna show up again unless you've made some changes within yourself. And on the flip side, if there's things that you gravitate towards, that you dream about, that you make everything into certain things, everything's a stage, everything's whatever it is, you're always looking at words and right, like, okay, pay attention to that too. This is you. This is your race, but easier said than done with all the conditioning. You're such a powerful person who, I think is a great example for my audience and all women to get to know yourself and to stand in your truth. It's your truth.
I think it's essential.
Yeah.
Everyone is not gonna love everything you do. If
Yeah.
you need them to, you will pay a heavy price.
Yep.
Because, you're gonna be doing everything for others, and a lot of us are raised and taught, to help others and be good to others, and, if are you a good, powerful person in your community because you were there to serve, and which is a lovely thing to do, but you have to make sure that that actually benefits you as well, that you can enjoy it. It doesn't have to be about money, it doesn't have to be about a career, it can be about anything that you choose to do and have value in your life and enjoy it. And you might want to get up every day and, work out and take walks and see your friends and see your family. And that may be the most amazing day. And you want to do that every day, then you should do that.
Yeah.
Like, that's an excellent thing to have and to do.
Do you feel like there's another level to reach, but you haven't been able to unlock the combination? Do you feel like on paper you've reached success, but something still feels off inside of you? You might describe it as feeling stuck or restless. Do you find yourself wanting to make a big change somewhere in your life, but you're unsure what steps to take and could also use some support in the process of moving gracefully in the direction your soul is calling you? If you've answered yes to any of these questions, my 12-week proprietary Unleash program may just be for you. If you'd like to learn more, head over to www.unleashwithkristy.com, answer a couple of questions, and book a discovery call with me. Keep rising, my friends. You are so much closer than you think. Yeah. It's thank you for saying that, because I'll say, you probably don't know a lot of my story, but when I was leaving corporate, I was so small town USA, chasing financial freedom, landed in financial freedom to the point
Yep.
where now I have the platinum handcuffs.
Yep.
And it was that, Sherry, but to be honest, my ego was attached to this job that most people couldn't survive in. And here I am 15 years in, right? Biggest companies, cutthroat ones,
Yep.
cutting people left and right. And like, so I had the money, but I also had this prestige in my mind, this ego that came with all of that. And so the turning point for me was my entry point into personal development was Tony Robbins. And so I went to Tony Robbins because I heard of him rewiring somebody's brain. And I was like, dude, whatever that is, like, you need to do
I
it over
want
here.
it.
Right. So that got me in the seat. And I'm like, okay, my picker's broken. Like, how do I, and, but what he said was what I really needed to hear. And he said, success without fulfillment is the ultimate failure. And I was like, oh my gosh. And because I was picked on a lot and made fun, I didn't have, it looked like I had a lot of confidence, but I didn't. And I was at this point, I'm 44 now. I was like, it was probably like 32, 30, maybe 30, yeah, 34. I was divorced, 34. And, and because Tony said those words, I already knew this, Sherry. I knew it. But I was at that point where I needed somebody else to say it that I respected, that it would validate. So when he said that, I'm like, oh, this man has the answers to everything that I need. Like, okay, so now what do I do? This word fulfillment. And he said, all right, take out a piece of paper and write down everything that makes you feel fulfilled.
Yep.
I mean, I'm college educated. I have an MBA. I am literally Googling underneath the table. Well, I didn't know the word fulfillment. I'm like, what the, okay. So this list I'm like, I start writing this list. Took me a long time. And I'm like, well, I want to rescue dogs. I want to rehabilitate dogs. I want to be in nature. I want to be so present with people. I want my antennas sharp every single day, which means I get a good night's sleep. I'm working out. I'm not planes, trains, automobiles every freaking week. And then he said, well, you got to find a way to make that your job. And I'm like, oh, I don't think there's any money in this, right?
Right.
I needed a life coach more than anybody. Didn't even know what they were, right? And it's funny,
Yeah.
6 years later, this is what I ended up doing. But to your point, like, all of that is now non-negotiables for me. It is my definition of success. And when I think about where I'm going and wanting to be on more stages, it's like, I don't want to do that to the degree that I was traveling beforehand, because I'm going to sacrifice all these other things. So if there's another way to do that, I will try in every other way possible to have the impact and to be able to get there. But I need this. This is my definition of success, to be able to have that. And it's so, I feel like what you're saying is, it's so easy to see what it is, an opportunity for you when you know yourself and you know what you bring and you know all the ways you could
Right.
bring it. And we may be a fit, we may not be a fit. And I have to be okay with that.
I think everything you said is spot on, but you were able to recognize it. You were going through a journey of your own and trying to figure out, what do I really want? What do I need? What's missing? What's not missing? Like, what are the tools I have that I can build on? And
Yeah,
it's scary. And you can talk to your girlfriends
it's
and your friend,
scary.
everybody all you want, and they don't know because they got their own stuff to figure out.
Yeah.
And that's the other part of it. There's so much you have to know from within you, no matter what you're going to do, that you can't have, your friends aren't going to give it to you. Other people aren't going to give it to you. And at some point you have to sit down and think in your own self, what do I have? What do I know? What do I believe? Who am I to make, and not wait for everyone to keep telling you. Well, and I know, and so do you, many really bright, competent women, people, who are just constantly like, well, everyone thinks that I should. Everyone thinks? Like, what do you think?
Mhm.
You know, you're gonna have to make a decision at some point. You know, there's gonna be like the years are gonna tick away on you. So at
So
some
fast.
point you have to make that decision and jump in. And if you don't like it, then you'll jump somewhere else. Like no choice you make is gonna be, I mean, there are certain decisions once you make them, that's the path you're gonna follow. But going back to my earlier point about, people, women especially that are like, I don't know if I'll give up my career and will my career suffer if I have kids and but if I don't have kids and man, you gotta make a decision. Like just do it and you'll figure it out.
Yeah.
You'll figure it out. Nobody knows.
And you don't figure it out until you do. You move,
Right.
right? Yeah.
Right, and whatever you do, you're gonna figure it out and you're gonna be happy with that. You are,
Yeah.
because 'cause you're gonna figure it out. But not making a decision is a huge decision, and it just goes on and on, and, "Well, I don't know." Well, you're not getting that time back, and it goes fast, and I can tell you, like, from my point in life, like, I can't believe that I'm sitting here saying, "I can't believe I've been in business 40 years," and I'm as busy as I was 40 years ago, and I'm very busy, and I'm more successful now than I've been in my career because I have the time to devote to it and I know what I want to do. And I don't see stopping. I don't see like I have a lot of friends and people are like, when are you gonna? I'm like, never.
Yeah.
Like this is what I'm doing and it works and I'm really happy with it. But if I had, if there had been a lot of indecision in that, I wouldn't be here and I wouldn't be doing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I'm so
that to
glad you're
me
doing it.
is, I think it all comes back to having some confidence and resilience and understanding, having belief in yourself. I don't know any other way. So I can't view it from, I don't like, I just know that the decisions you make and you figure them out, you're going to win. You're just going to do something. Just do something.
Yeah. Well, I can say from being on, on both sides of it, like, leaving, I was worried about what everybody else was going to think. It was the way that I was raised. It was the first question that was asked. Well, what's so, like, who cares? Right. That's where I'm at now.
Right.
And a lot of paralysis and not making a move, choosing corporate
Totally.
America, right? And I think that pain can be a great motivator. And it's like I still feel this way. I got all the things that I thought that was gonna make me happy, and I still feel a certain way. And so just being cognizant and aware of who you are and paying attention and not being afraid. And now
Right.
this is just the way of life. Action, like the faster, I mean, I move so fast now. It is insane how fast I move. And I will say, I would love your thoughts on this. The ladies that I coach too, we get to I have a 12-week program, and a lot of it is the first part is getting to know, like everybody thinks they know themselves, but we're so conditioned, and they're here for a reason, that they're probably out of misalignment somewhere. And so there's a few exercises we go through, and it is so revealing. And then we move into activation, and then they get to a point of really truly unleashing into who they are. And at that point, Shari, it's like, I mean, sometimes they just like the transformation sometimes almost looks physical
Yeah.
because they're a different person in front of me. She's confident. She cares. I think a lot of people, we all want to be liked. We care what people think, but it's not stopping our movement. It's like, okay, I get this. You're not riding shotgun though. We're going to put you back here.
Yep.
But one of the things that happens, and I feel like it's almost as if this is an indicator that you're there, where they see that, man, she's unstoppable, is that people start acting a little differently towards you.
Oh
Like
yeah.
perhaps you can reveal who was
Oh
actually a
yeah.
friend. Can you,
Oh
with
yeah.
working around all these, both
Oh yeah.
yourself and all your profile clients, can you talk about what that looks like when people act different, and what advice you give? I'm
Yeah.
sure you've been such a great sounding board, and yeah,
For
it's
sure.
hard.
So,
It's really hard
people
for
will
my clients, and me too. It
people
was.
people will tell you, and I'm sure you've heard this, you've changed. You've changed. We don't even recognize you. You've changed. You're so different now. And the truth is you haven't changed. You're still the same person. They've changed because they don't know how to adapt to your decisions and your success and your choices. So now if you're more financially successful, they're uncomfortable with that. If you're happier, they're uncomfortable with that. Why is she happy? Why am I not happy? Well, Oh, and then they start with they start the backstabbing or the front stabbing or whatever they feel about you. Everybody's got a comment about you, and you weren't at that dinner where they all talked about you and came at you, and you're like, well, she thinks, you're like I have grown a hard shell about those things over time. And people don't understand why you do that. I'm like, I don't care. Like, I don't care that I don't, and I honestly don't anymore. But it still nags at you when you know that people are judging you, and they are. It's okay. You can say when people say, "Oh, nobody's judging you, nobody cares." They are. Everyone loves to judge,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
So,
they do.
they just do. And you have to kind of make the decision, like, are those people like, are they important? Like, do they really matter? If we're hurt, you come to the point where you're hurting people that you care about. I mean, are you really hurting them, or do they just need to level up to you and understand, what you do and why? And if they're good friends or good family, they're going to say, I'm so happy for you. But it's hard for people to do that when they're not happy themselves.
It is.
It just is.
It's a reflection. I feel like in the past year, I wasn't sure if I was going to step out in this other side. I've been, coaching privately, and I'm like, this thing's perfected. It's time to go. Everybody.
Be proud.
And it's almost as if and I am. It's been a lot of work, and but it was surprising because I haven't crossed the finish line, but it's like I crossed the finish line in
We
their
never
mind.
do. It keeps moving. The
Yeah,
little
yeah.
sucker keeps moving.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a trick. It's like there's a string. There's a
It's an
string. They just
optical
keep
illusion.
pulling it
Absolutely.
back. But for me, I'm like, wow, like I get to a certain point and I know I've evolved, but I'm not there yet. But when you see these behaviors change, you're like, whoa, she thinks I crossed the finish line. So what happens? Do people like I just let them go. I'm at a point now where when I see that, like,
Yeah.
I'll push them to the outer circle, possibly.
Right. Right.
Give them a chance to get their shit straight, and if I think that there's something there, but I let them go, and I feel like um the world can get really big and really small at the same time.
Really well said. Very
Yeah.
true. I
Yeah.
think you can always reposition people, as to how they fit into your bubble, back to that bubble, who gets in and who's kind of around the outside and who's around the bigger outside. And, you don't have to delete people completely from your life. The ones that you can delete. You don't need them. You know
Yeah.
that already.
Yeah.
And then there's the ones that are, they mean well. They love you and you care about them, but you don't have as much time for their stuff, right? Because there's those people that will just drain on you all the time. And at some point we all go, man, I don't think I have time for all this. Like, I care, but how much can you put into that?
Yeah.
Then you
Yeah.
always
It's
have to
okay.
keep prioritizing, the core relationships in your life and the core goals in your life that you need to keep, and make sure those people though are contributing to yours. And I think that's the women's burden in many cases, where people expect women to take care and provide and cover everybody. You have to make sure that the people that you're giving to are giving back to you as well. And you have a right to, extract that, demand it, expect it, want it.
Yeah.
Especially, again, we're not talking about little children,
Hmm.
people with little children. That's a one-way street. You take care of them.
Yep.
But as time goes on, you have, the people that you care about and that take care of and have to tend to and call and at. What are those people also looking in on you?
People don't look after the strong, the perceived strong.
Absolutely right.
They just don't.
That's 100% accurate. So the
Yeah.
more strength you show, the less support you will get.
Yeah.
And maybe you want it or maybe you don't, but it's nice to have that when you call a friend, an old friend, and they're like, "What are you still doing?" Then you're something like, "Okay, I'm good. I'm good."
Yeah. So true. And it's helpful to have somebody from the outside look
100%.
into.
And to align yourself with other, people like yourself. Like, I've met
Yeah.
amazing amazing people through this part of my work. Um, outside of the sports world, and as we've gotten more in from writing the books, as we've gotten more into the um, I don't like to call it the mindset field, but what is it? Self improvement, whatever that the field is called. I met some amazing people who have really added a lot to the conversation and make you realize you're not crazy. The number one comment we get for the book Relentless, which is 2 million copies sold now, and Winning is the second book, which I think is just like better than even better than the first one. The number one comment is I thought I was crazy
Yeah.
because people don't know that they're not the only ones that feel this way. And you realize you're not the only person that has these thoughts and these goals and these ambitions. And you're like, okay, it wasn't just me. And I
Yeah.
can keep going.
So, to your point about people finding relentless and winning and realizing like, wow, I'm not crazy. There's not anything wrong with me. There's actually other people out there that are like me. I can relate to all of that because when I went through my divorce and had a little wild stint and was partying on the lake and, and then I found personal development, trying to figure some other things out. And but I heard you become the 5 people that you spend the most time with, and I was
Mhm.
like, oh shit, this is not
These are
okay.
not the
I need to
people I want, right?
I need to clean this up real quick.
Yeah.
And but I was in Charlotte and I didn't have all of my friends at that time had little babies at home. I needed a network. I didn't have a network. I didn't have community. And so thank goodness there was YouTube and there was books and there was audiobooks because all of these people became people that were my friends, really, in a
That's
sense. Like
really
they were in my
interesting.
ears. That was my resource. They were in my ears. And I'll say one more thing at that event that I was at. They being around a lot of men and leveraging that masculine energy and leveraging my own for so many years. It took me later on to balance it out and find the feminine and I used to read these books and I'd get to the part about the darkness. You got to go to a dark place, right? And I'm like, what is that? Like what? I don't
You
have
were
that.
probably already there.
I don't have it. I don't have it. I don't have it. And then I somehow accidentally landed there at that event, and I was like, oh, I planked for the longest plank I'd ever done was 3.5 minutes. And then I went and planked for 12 and a half. And I was sore as shit, Sherry. Like I did Ben
Yeah.
Newman's workout for 2 days and
Yeah, that
I
was
didn't even know
crazy.
about this thing.
Right.
But I did it anyway. And the things that I was thinking about, it was just like, it was, and nobody was even talking about this stuff yet. But however, I went back to those books and I'm like, I remember Tim Grover talking about this. I remember I kept skipping over all of that and just thank you for writing about that because I was like, whoa, if anybody knows what I'm thinking about right now, you probably wouldn't want to be congratulating me, you know?
Well,
But then I
right.
was like, oh, this is kind of a thing. This is kind of a thing and I'm okay.
So when Tim and I first started talking about Relentless, he had called me because we had tried a few times over the years to connect on a book, and the timing wasn't right, and so we'd known each other for quite some time. And when he called me about this book, and he started talking about it, all of a sudden started talking about this concept of the dark side that all the greats have. And because it's just something that people don't want to recognize in themselves because you think it's like a bad thing,
Yeah.
like it's like the
That's how I felt.
darkness is
Yeah.
bad. And while he was talking about it, I had just written a book with Tiger Woods and his dad, and I was like, oh my god, I'm like, I need to write this book with you. It's like, all right, I don't know. And it was the first time I really realized like everybody has that, whether you call it the dark side or something less dramatic and scary, it's something that's personal in you that you really don't share, but it's sort of like your it's your fire, it's kind of that zhuzh that's like it's personal to you. And whatever that means, it's that thing that's going to drive you when, you don't really need to talk about it,
Yep.
but it's personal to you, whatever that energy is. And
Yep.
everybody has it in
Yeah.
some way, whatever that is. People think they don't have it, but they do. And we've had more people just two different things. People will say, I don't have that. That's not
Yeah.
me. And Tim's
That was
like, if I
me.
talk to you for a half hour, you would understand what it is.
Yeah.
And there's other people that are like, whoa, I thought I was the only one.
Yeah.
And then
And it
they
was,
get it.
and I will say that like afterwards, you know, I have a friend who's a competitive bodybuilder, and you know, those that I was texting on the flight home, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this thing happened, and like I kind of feel bad about it, but I don't want to let it go because I just saw what happened, and I don't know how that could ever happen again if I didn't, right? And it's and the guys just get it. It's I feel like it's us ladies that maybe don't give ourselves as much permission to
I think
recognize.
that's probably true. Good girls, nice girls. That's I
Yeah.
don't know. I think at some point you should grow out of that, right? We should all probably grow out of it and say, this is, this is who I am. This is whatever. But it can come in so many forms in terms of just, wanting to be independent of people telling you what to do and how you deal with it. It doesn't have to be behavioral. It doesn't have to be bad behavior. A dark
No.
side does not have to be bad behavior. It doesn't have to be bad choices. It doesn't have to be, secret things that, please God, I hope there wasn't a camera there.
Yeah.
Doesn't have to be all of that. It
No,
can just be
it
that.
could just be like nobody's going to tell me what to do anymore.
That's right.
Right? It could just
That's
be as
exactly
simple
right.
as like, no, right? Like, you're not gonna, you know, my name's gonna be everywhere because you didn't want it everywhere. It could be simple things like that that you tap into, and it's like, whoa, when you feel that fire get ignited,
Yeah.
you go, okay, this is where I need to go on
Right.
those days where it's a little bit hard.
Right. And I think too there's that whole idea of like, you have time. We always, that's a big social media thing now. Don't worry, you have time, you'll figure it out. You know, time gets shorter. It goes fast. It goes too fast. And that time you thought you had, one other thing that I've really learned from truly successful people, the greats, they don't fear losing. They don't fear failure because they've had a lot of wins. You don't fear failure. They fear running out of time
That's my favorite thing I've ever heard you say.
to get the things you want done. And you start to feel that, not like the world's going to end tomorrow or you're close, you're going to drop dead or you're just whatever, but you do realize, there's going to be things you didn't finish. There's going to be things you didn't accomplish, things you didn't achieve that like, so I think more about that than anything. I think about, will I be able to do all the things that I want to keep doing and doing them, as much as I can and as hard as I can for as long as I can. I'm like extremely healthy and work out too much and all the kinds of good things. So I don't worry about it from that standpoint. I see a lot of people my age, I'm 63. I see a lot of people who are very caught up in like losing at this time of their life.
Yeah.
But I just, I don't want to be at some point going, oh, I
I
wish I
wish.
had,
Yeah.
done more. I'm going to run out of time.
Yeah, I feel like
At,
that's what shifted in me at 44,
hmm
and I know I have my parents are in great health, but all of a sudden it's like I want as many vacations as possible. And then as an entrepreneur, I realize that you step out on the path here, and then you land over here, and there's time there, and things take time. And once you catch the vision for what you want to do, it's like, oh my gosh, and that has really helped me speed a lot of this, like, what do people think, make
right.
decisions fast, just make a freaking decision, like just
Make a
move,
decision. Like
keep
you talked
going.
about the finish line. I mean, there's
Yeah.
no such thing.
No.
I mean, you just
No.
you think it's there and then the ground just shifts under your feet and you have a whole different scenario or you see a little path off the side on that race and you're like, "Whoa, but if I took that, oh, right." And then the finish line is moved and the only finish line I'm aware of is like you get to it and you see another one and another one, you never get done. I mean, I guess you could ultimately be done, but really,
Yeah,
you're always
not
going to
people
see
that are
something
wired this way.
else.
Yeah, not people.
I mean, I don't look for a finish line.
No.
I
No,
wouldn't know what that would look like.
I don't think that this type of wiring has that in the DNA finish lines. I want to be respectful of your time, but I would love here before we close. Could you talk? You are incredibly great at negotiations.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I hope so.
Can you leave us with other, a few tips that you could share
Yes, for
with people
sure.
that are
For
negotiating deals
sure.
for themselves, and just some of the things that I know, like sensing something's bad, sensing something's off, patterns, when to
Definitely.
back out, all of that.
For sure. And this will be the best stuff that I told you in this whole time. So, the thing about negotiating 101 is most people are afraid to talk about money. So if you are uncomfortable, if there were, 100 people listening right now or sitting in chairs in front of us and you said how many people are uncomfortable talking about money, if they were all honest, probably 98 out of 100, if not 100 would raise their hand. Because we're just not wired to be comfortable talking about money. We're taught as young people as don't talk about it, don't talk about that. Like that's not polite or it's not good manners or it sounds like you're showing off. So we're all programmed to not be totally comfortable to talk about money, especially our own money.
Yeah.
And especially like, and again, women have a harder time talking about money for sure. But the thing that I try to remember is the person across from me or on the phone or wherever they are is also uncomfortable talking about it. Nobody wants to put the money on the table first. Nobody wants to know, well, what are you offering? What did like you're afraid you're going to get like there's a right or wrong way to do this. And there isn't. The only way you get good at it is by doing it and then understand that the next time you do it, it's going to be a totally different scene anyway. So you're
Mm,
still going to have to wrangle with the idea of, how do I put this out there? Um, have a value. If I said to everybody in that room, you're all going to be speakers or you're all going to do this or whatever it is, what's your fee? Most people don't know their fee because they're not comfortable to say, well, it's this. Well, is someone gonna think that's too high? Is someone gonna think it's too low? Well, it's your fee. What is it? You know, I am a big fan if you're not sure for people out there who are trying to do speaking, and I'm sure a lot of your followers are in that space and want to do this, you can always say to somebody, well, what is your budget for this? Or my fee is typically have a fee. My fee is typically I'm just use a low ball and my fee is typically $10,000 to speak at your $20,000 because I always say you can always come down, and they can say to you, well, that's really, we weren't thinking of paying a fee for this. We can pay your travel costs. And then you can be like, let me consider that.
mhm.
Would you be comfortable with this? You can always have that conversation. If
So
you
if you were to say something that's too high, is there any risk that they're just gonna that like the conversation's over? As I feel like
Sure,
that's probably a lot. Like, could they
it's
just say, "Hey,
mostly
Sherry,
people's
sorry."
concern.
Yeah, yeah.
But
But that really doesn't typically happen. Like
I
if you
mean,
came back.
well, the question is, do you care? Because, like if you really do think you should be getting $10,000 or 20,000 or 100,000, whatever you think your fee is, if you think that's what it's worth for you to go do this for these people, you should honor your own fee and say, listen, it's not worth my time, my energy. If you don't care about that, if your priority is getting out there and speaking, there's nothing wrong with this either. And say, listen, I don't care about the fee. Pay my travel costs, I'm going to come to your event.
I want the audience.
Right. But do that
Yeah,
like for a little while,
yeah,
right? And then if you're getting a lot and you're successful at that, your fee is whatever you can get. Then then get your fee. Then be have the confidence in yourself to say, my fee is $10,000 and see how that's received. Are you speaking to groups? How do I say this? Are you speaking to groups that just don't have the money to pay you and might not be worth your time? Right. So if you want to elevate the type of event you're doing or the speaking you're doing, you might want to consider raising your fee. You kind of have to feel your way through it. There is no answer. There is no
mm,
like, this is what speakers get.
yeah,
False. That's just sort of a game. And if you're well employed doing something else, if the money isn't what you're after, then do them. And then eventually add in a fee that you feel is worth your time and energy. Travel costs for sure. And again, if you're getting a lot of events and when you leave those events, if you're like, this got me nothing, like other than practice as a speaker, which is important. And you might get great video, which might give you great content. So it's great stuff to post and use your, we'll call it Instagram, but maybe use other platforms or whether it's your LinkedIn or whatever it is, use that to showcase what you want. You know,
Yeah.
if you want to be a great speaker, but your whole Instagram is like, pictures of food or your vacation or like a fit check, you're not advertising the thing that you want to create. So I'm a big proponent of like, I know people like just post, 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 and that's great. But your posting is going to be the number one place that people come to look at who you are because they can, right? Like that's where they're going to look and they're going to scroll and that's the impression that's what they're going to get. And if they're hiring a speaker and all they're having is like, pictures of your vacation, those two things will not align. So I'm a big advocate of putting out there what you want to show about yourself. And the rest of it, you don't you really don't need to show or put it in your story so it goes away or whatever. But in terms of negotiating those things, if you show yourself as being, high end, professional, you're going to bring those fees because they're going to see that you do good events and you take it seriously and you're professional about what you're doing. And so it will create the look of, well, this person obviously is a competent, respected speaker. And so
Yeah, that's such great advice. I mean, it really is free advertising. All these social media platforms as of this moment are free advertising. It's like, we have to use a little bit of common sense here too when we're listening to all this advice about just post, just post, just post. Because I hear that too. But to your point, like, man, this is like my own advertising for
it's
myself.
unbelievable.
So like, why don't I get a little smarter about it and go create content no matter where it is and make this thing look as good as possible because it's almost like it's a speaker reel for itself of itself.
It's so important.
Yeah.
I'm the, I don't care if we post something, I'm not even not talking about on my account for a client. If we're post something and it gets, this many views as opposed to this many views, but it shows exactly what we want to show. And if somebody comes to look at that account and says, well, I don't know about this guy, let me see what he's all about, blah, 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 then
Yeah.
we've created a highlight reel that they don't have to look anywhere else.
Yeah, and people don't realize that like, you could have 100 people look at that post and they could be 100 of the right people. Or it could go viral and you could get 5,000 followers that are never going to hire you to speak.
Never. They
Never.
saw it. That was really great. Like you got 20
So,
million views on a weird
yeah.
post. Hilarious.
Yeah.
But so I'm not sure everybody totally agrees with that as a thing, but I really do believe that you have to know what are you putting out there and what are people going to see and it's your billboard. It just is. And if you can post every day and support that, then do it. Like post, 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 post. Post 10 times a day if you can show, that you're supporting something linear if you're building that thing. But I'm not, as I said, I'm not a fan of posting just to post. Give some thought to it because people will see it. And if you have, the sillier stuff, the throwaway stuff, whatever, it goes in your story and it's gone. But as
Yeah.
far as people like, who is this? What do I need to know about them? And you can really show that. It's pretty incredible that you can,
Yeah. It really is. I mean,
yeah,
when leveraged the right way, it is so powerful. And the fact that
for sure.
it's still free, I think is
For sure it is.
something we should all be leveraging. So how do you recognize a bad deal or a bad person in a deal or like, what is that, I feel like, unfortunately, I think this exists everywhere, but like this space can be a little, and right. So, I don't know. What does that look like for you when you're like, oh,
So for me,
this
it
thing's
looks
not
like
going to
this.
work. This is not going
Yeah.
to work. Yeah.
For me, this is how it looks. If they start bad, weird, it's just going to stay that way.
And
And
what is
by,
weird? Like, what would be an example of this thing starting
okay,
weird?
you don't like the way the person is approaching you. The approach is weird. The vibe is weird. They don't seem professional. They can't answer your questions. They're, you ask a simple question and they can't like get back to you in a reasonable time. the money is off. I always, you can't do good business with bad people. That's a Warren Buffett quote. That's not my own observation, but it's totally true. If somebody is like, they brought you something, oh, I want you to come do my event, but you have an opinion of them that isn't like really great. Like, some things, or you've seen some of their other stuff. They're not your kind of person. Like, that's what you're going to get.
Yeah.
Like, it's not going to be any better for you. It's just going to not be a good situation.
Yeah.
And so I think that is, for me, like, I don't mind doing hard deals. I do a lot of hard deals that are just, you got to bring them to the point. I'm very patient with, you listen to somebody's offer. I don't get all wild, like, that's ridiculous. We would never. Let me talk this through. Let me come back to you, and I'll come back and say, well, what makes sense for us would be da 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 da. Is that something, is that something that you could consider? Is that something that would work for you? A good deal to me is a collaboration. I don't think a good deal is like a knockdown fight,
Yeah,
you
where
know.
somebody feels bad like somebody feels
Right.
like they've lost in some way.
Right. And it depends what you're negotiating for, because you might
Sure.
be having a knockdown, drag out thing, and you might be adversarial. My business should not be adversarial. I'm in a talent business. I'm selling famous people to other entities. And right. So I'm not in the, I just wouldn't do a deal with people that were difficult, or I didn't like, the way they do business, or I just wouldn't do it. I would just say to my client, this isn't a good deal for us.
Mhm.
And I say that all the time,
Mm.
all the time. It just, does it fit you? Does it fit your brand? Does it fit what you're trying to accomplish? Are you going to go do a speaking gig? Are you going to get on a stage somewhere, and like all the other speakers, you're going to be like, why am I here with these people? Like, this is not a good fit for me.
And when you say these people, is it the audience? Is it the speakers? Is it the people putting it
It could
on,
be
or
any of
kind
the
of any of
above.
it?
It
Yeah.
could be any of it. Like, really
Yeah.
understand who you're doing business with, and why. It's usually not the audience. Audiences are nice people, but it might be more, the organizer of the event. Why are they doing this? Why are they hosting this? What's their agenda?
Yeah.
There's a lot of weird stuff out there. And you
Yeah.
really do have a right to understand, who are you involved with? Especially in this personal development space. This as a coach, and I'm sure your clients know this as well. And, there's a lot of people out there looking for that dollar of, come to my event, life changing,
Yeah.
20 amazing speakers. I'll say this for women who are listening to your show who want to be speakers. There are like no women speakers out there. Like, they get overlooked and every event is trying to plug in like one or two good speakers. And I'm always amazed by this, because there's so many incredibly competent, talented, successful women. And then the ones that they'll bring in to speak are like, why? Like, because she's got a lot of followers that are probably fake. So there's
Probably.
something there too. There's a lot of space out there for women to do really high end speaking. So advocate for yourself, because they're looking.
Thank you for saying that, and it was a great segue because I was gonna close by saying now Tim Grover can't hear this because I think Tim's amazing, but we need you over here, Shari. We need you representing
That
women
I won't
authors
do.
and
Right.
speakers. We
Right.
really need you.
That I'm not going to
I'm
do,
serious.
because I know what I do. I know
Yeah.
what I do. And I do that. And I'm really big on that too, is like, know what you do. You don't have to do everything. So I've done that, and I'm not going to do that. But
Okay. We
but you
want you
don't need that.
though.
You don't need it. You don't need it. People out there who think, do I need an agent? You don't. You need an agent after you've already built what you do, to manage what you're doing. You don't, an agent is not going to find you gigs. They're
I
not
think
going to find
that's a
you
great
deals. It
point.
doesn't work like that. We can talk about it some other time if you want, but you need to build on your own and work those contacts. And if you met somebody at an event or a show or a conference, whatever, and say, I see you do this event, I would love to be one of your speakers. I talk about this, and you would be amazed by where they're kind of like, huh, especially for women, because they're the shortage of women on the speaking circuit is bizarre.
Yeah.
It's bizarre.
Yeah, it really is. I see that. Well, we will come back to you after things have been built, Shari, and see if you're ready to. I can't thank you enough for having this conversation.
It's my pleasure. I'm sorry about the weirdness and the lighting and all that, but
nobody cares about that.
Is good, so.
The wisdom and the truth that was shared really is what I came here for. I'm so grateful for, and I know it's what all of my audience wants to hear. I'm just on such a mission of truth and showing people exactly what it looks like. And I believe that if you're going to be on a stage, or if you're going to have even one follower, it is our responsibility to make sure that we're saying, because people, they go into action off of the things that are being told. So thank you for being you. Thank you for sharing as much as you have.
My pleasure. Happy to be here. And I'm honored.
Thank you.